Quite a breezy day, bit of sunshine, but the wind is chilly again. About 14 degrees max, I think. Feels like it's about 12 or 13 right now, maybe. Varies there. Inland, probably a bit warmer. My camera's probably a bit wonky. It's very unusual for the wind to be this chilly at this time of year. I expect it's El Nino. suppose I ought to think of something philosophical. I'm lost in my own thoughts at the moment. Hello. I'll probably talk a bit more when I can't hear the wind whistling in my ears. With a bit of action. Hello. That's better. I can hear myself think now. I'm trying to correct the camera, but I don't really have any level indicator. Yes, we shall have a talk in a moment. That'll be fun. Thanks. But I will start talking when I don't look like I'm mad talking to myself, because there's a lot of people about. Oh. Yes, so what I'm going to talk about is some ideas that I have for radically improving Guernsey's economy. And the main idea is to turn Guernsey into a business startup incubation hub. And that's going to need some explanation. So I'll start by saying that if you're familiar with venture capital, then it has some similar ideas. That being that you facilitate great new ideas by giving them advantages to get themselves up and running. And there are some key points that I need to add to all of that, which I will explain in a moment. So you get a thoughtful interlude first. Thank you. Thanks. It's a shame it's still chilly. So, how do we turn Guernsey into a startup incubation hub? Well, we couldn't do it right now because our cost of living, premises costs, legal costs, everything is sky high. There's absolutely no way in their right mind would set up here unless they were a bank. So we've got to deal with that first. So first and foremost, the most important idea is that for 5 years, any startup that gets granted incubator status gets 5 years tax-free. No gotchas, nothing else. Absolutely, completely and utterly tax-free. It might need double taxation agreements in some jurisdictions, I'm not sure, but that's the key part of the idea. But in return, what that company, that incubator startup has to grant is warrants to the government, the States of Guernsey, so that the States of Guernsey has an equity stake in the startup, so that if it is successful, the States of Guernsey will profit from that success and will profit fairly from helping to nurture that success. Of course, nurture requires a little bit more explanation than just 0% tax. So there are other there are other benefits to talk about, and there could be more too. This is just sort of the preliminary ideas, so don't shoot me down just because I might have missed something. Let's get past the dangers. Right, I'll talk in a moment. Got to pay attention. Cool, that's so bumpy, that ground. It's really, really hard packed, very dry ground. It's probably got a lot of sand. Right, so what other key benefits are there? Right, we've got to cover. So many cars making noise as well. I don't know whether you'll be able to hear me properly. I'll wait till I turn inland, and then you should be able to hear me. Got a bit of wind as well now. I am using a DJI microphone. It's Chinese technology and it's absolutely amazing. I do recommend them. I would say they make the best microphones in the world for the consumer market, you know, the general consumer. And hopefully you can hear me quite clearly through the wind and the car noise. But I'm just not sure. Right, so there is a bit of wind here, but let's continue. So, premises. What I want the states of Guernsey to do is to sort out the brownfield sites. There are a lot of vinery sites and other land which needs to be decontaminated and or cleared so that it can be developed. And I believe what the states should do is sort out these plots of land or old buildings, whichever they might be, and turn them into offices and also flats for workers which they own and lease. And the idea being that they lease them out at very advantageous rates, provided you are an incubator. Okay? So just to clarify and make sure that point sunk home, it would make much cheaper accommodation than local people would be getting, right? So that's going to piss a few people off. However, the idea is to give incubator businesses a fighting chance to get their ideas off the ground and use whatever capital they've raised to get their business up and running. So both the offices and the worker flats need to be available and cheap. Plus, the states of Guernsey will be raising some revenue from rents instead of taxation. So the more business they bring in and the more property they lease, the more money they will make just off the land and premises alone, right? Plus, it is a great asset to hold on to because it can always be repurposed in the future if ideas change or economic circumstances determine that alternative paths need to be explored. And I would say it's vastly better than wasting millions and millions of pounds on consultants that never come up with anything, or projects which never deliver. Okay, this is land, and this is getting someone else with the ideas to use it, instead of trying to be really, really clever and come up with these systems which are supposed to, you know, bring great efficiencies, and they never do. It's all a load of absolute nonsense, never works. So that's one additional key element. Another key element is our legal fees are astronomically high. You can easily pay £600 an hour for a lawyer over here. They're called advocates. And that is not to suggest at all that these advocates are overpricing. It's just that they have to provide a lot of very complicated legal services to wealth management. And that requires very, very high standards and very, very high capability. And they've got to pay for all of that. So their fees are very, very high. So there needs to be a cap on that. And I would suggest that we cap those fees to, say, £400 per hour max, or whichever is lower, because they may want to compete with each other. The idea being that that is also granted to residents too, so their fees are reduced, because I think it's unfair on residents. So once the legal fee cap is in place, that also introduces, I mean, you might argue, well, how on earth will law firms ever agree to that? Well, I actually think they would be really, really pleased to see industry diversification, because it opens up many, many more avenues for them to provide services. So these incubated firms, if they become successful, you know, they've been, they were birthed, you know, they emerged like chicks, you know, from eggs in Guernsey, and they would have set down some roots here as well. So legal services provided to those firms could make a lot of money continuing to support those firms in the future as they prosper and develop. So there's lots of great new avenues for law firms to... Oh, I've got hiccups. And but I think it's critically important to do that, because most of the business people that I've spoken to over the years have said there's no way I could set up in Guernsey, because the legal fees alone are incredibly high. You know, so they're paying sort of up to £200 an hour max normally in many European countries, sometimes a bit more, but never 600. On your left. Cool, you've got lots of doggies.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, good morning.
Oh, mind out. Whoop. I thought he was going to say hello to your dog. Thanks. So, yes, getting those legal fees under control, I think, is advantageous and not such a detriment to the law firms, because it could give them lots and lots of new opportunities. And I think they might relish the opportunity to sponsor innovation and industry diversification. So the other points to make here, I mentioned the vineries earlier. So the idea there, I'll have to shut up for a moment. Hello. Oh, that's all right. So the idea with the vineries is get them sorted out so that the lands can be repurposed. Most of them are broken down. They would need to be rebuilt, but the land could either be used for growing cash crops like marijuana for the medical industry, or biotech for developing new strains of products and things like that, because it's excellent conditions here in Guernsey to grow stuff. We used to have a massive industry based on it. So the idea there is to bring back some diversification there. Or that land sitting idle doing absolutely nothing could be repurposed into accommodation or offices, etc., etc. Just sat there doing nothing is absolutely no good to anybody. Hello. So we've covered 0% tax for 5 years in exchange for warrants. We've covered capping legal fees, and we've covered the government, the states of Guernsey, having leased premises at advantageous rates to help these companies flourish. The other idea as well, probably two other things. One is that we need that 15% tax rate to apply to companies that are bringing in over 750 million, because that tax just gets exported to another jurisdiction. Why? The tax is still being paid, so we should claw it back, because if the company's based here, they should be paying the tax here. So we should close that loophole. It might upset a few companies, but at the end of the day, they're still paying tax, right? So it depends on where that tax goes, and I think it's unfair to let it trickle away from Guernsey when we've spent so much effort accommodating those companies and providing them with premises and services and staff. So I think that's fair. So that kind of gets that part out of the way, which would help bring in some money to sort of pump into this rejuvenation. And God, I've lost my words for a moment because I've got so much. When I've got wind in my ear, I can't think. Right, just got a hand signal. Make sure somebody doesn't kill me. Right, so we've closed that loophole. Well, it's not really a loophole, is it? It's something we're not doing that we should be doing. And the trouble is, the reason why we do it is because we're so terrified to upset the wealth industry that we basically sacrifice ourselves for them every year, and it's just getting really, really bad. It's not a good, healthy relationship anymore. We're being exploited, and the way to reduce and mitigate exploitation is to have mutually amicable arrangements. And you get mutually amicable arrangements when you have diversification of your industries. And of course there could be many other measures. I certainly don't want to see GST come in. I think it just passes the tax burden onto ordinary people instead of getting that tax money from other sources where there's a higher amount of wealth. So I believe that we should actually aim for tax banding one day, but that's not part of this plan. If needs be, that of course. But I don't think it will be necessary. Right, I'll continue in a moment. And I think another very significant benefit to talk about is that it opens up the skills market to so many different areas, right? You could have biotech, you could have growing, the premises that need to be built. There could be a rule that says only local builders can build them and maintain them and operate them. So that closes the loop, and it makes sure that money flows within the local economy So the taxpayer spends their taxes building these premises, and then they get paid to build them and operate them. So there's that cycle of money flowing through all the time, which I think is good. And then, of course, the new money gets injected into that system, which is effectively, to get the energy balance right, you need an inflow of energy, which is money. That comes from the people who rent the premises. So there is that skills diversification. And of course, there are many tech businesses out there that could exploit that cheaper accommodation, and they could, we've nearly got 100% fibre connectivity, and our fibre now is fast, it's good, and we're well positioned as like a stepping stone between Great Britain and Europe, which is absolutely magnificent. Plus we're a huge wealth centre for offshore finance. So a startup would have all of the skills and expertise necessary to do the paperwork to get set up, also to find money, which can be found from all of the banks here. So the banks would win, and the local people would win by having so many more employment opportunities. So I do admit, I need a swig of water first before I carry on. That's better. Oh, excuse me if I belch. So I do admit that the idea is very ambitious, and it probably has a number of naiveties that need to be explored, but I want you to take all of these ideas on board in the vein of brainstorming. Right? The idea of brainstorming is just coming up with whatever flows out of your head and then seeing if you can make it stand up. And either the idea that you came up with is good, or it leads you to other ideas. But don't shoot them down immediately and dismiss them, because we do need revolutionary change in the Guernsey economy in order to basically apply shock paddles, because it's dying. People are leaving, people can't afford to remain here, and we're just becoming this wealth centre, and it's excluding most of the population, which I think is just wrong. It's not a good balance to have, because one day all of the wealthy people here who are enjoying things at the moment will have to move, because they'll have to turn around when they try and hire a plumber. That plumber's going to say, well, I want £600 an hour, please, because I'm just as important as the lawyer. And we're already seeing that. I had to pay £150 an hour to have my car serviced recently, and the cost was astronomical. And this can't continue. This is absolute insanity. And with the states of Guernsey losing money left, right, and centre, well over £48 million has been wasted on failed projects alone, and that's a massive chunk of tax revenue. We just can't afford to keep doing all of these silly things. We need something which is where the ideas are flowing from outside, right? So the genius comes from outside and is supported by the genius inside, because we do have some magnificently clever people here and some people with incredible skills. We're wasting them, right? Because we're not putting them to work on a diversified industry landscape. And as we know, in nature, diversity is the strength against the adversity of change. That's really important, and that's what we don't have. We don't have that strength against change. We've made ourselves servants of the wealth industry, and it's now got to a point where they've become parasitic. The sum effect of the wealth industry is to behave like a parasite. We're having all of our nutrition drained out of us, and one day we're going to be dead. And I don't mean that literally, of course, but the island's going to be sunk. And we can avoid that by diversifying our industry, and it means doing something extremely radical. So hopefully you've taken on board those ideas, and some of you watching this might think about them, and something might happen one day. It's rather nice out of the wind. One can hear oneself think. So that's the chief elements of my master plan. I don't want to talk about too many other elements because other ideas have popped up, but it becomes like a TLDR thing where your brain's just full of too many things to think about, and I don't think that's advantageous. I think it's better to plant seeds and let people grow them rather than try and dump a giant forest on people and say, here's what works. Let ideas evolve. Thank you. Well, it actually feels warm now out of that wind. It's lovely. Almost feels t-shirty. Trouble is, the moment you turn another corner, you're being blasted by icy air, which is not nice. But yeah, I would be interested to hear comments about my ideas, but also if you've enjoyed the cycling too. If you were on an exercise bike trying to use the journey to burn some calories, then maybe my rambling on might have taken your mind off the pain of the effort. We certainly have to do something. I'm actually having to think about planning to move away because I can't see myself having a good retirement in Guernsey. I simply don't have enough money. I estimate I need at least £1.6 million in my pension fund, and I don't have that. It's future projections, of course. And I'm never going to be able to raise that amount. I think it's just silly to attempt to, so I may have to sell up and move on. And I am doing as much as I can to get the house renovated so it can be sold. It's a long process because I do suffer a lot with tendonitis, tendinopathy and arthritis. But I've been doing a huge amount to overcome that based on stretching and strength exercises and new nutrition and trying to just keep myself aerobically active so that I can repair faster, and a lot of that is working, it's helping, and I've cut down the cycling too. So with more repair time to accommodate for my age, I seem to be making progress and I get less tissue pain. That's how I can describe it. Sometimes the pain is so intense I have to stop. So, I can only do gardening for about absolute maximum of about 4 hours, and then I'm aching too much. But if I get a good break, I'm fine. But I do need a good lengthy break afterwards. Okay, this looks lovely, doesn't it? Lots of people with backpacks. Must be a team of adventurers out and about. Let's have another swig. Une bouteille de l'eau. And if I got the gender of the bottle wrong now, I do apologise to people who know French, or French people, who I love very much. France is a wonderful country. So I might rabbit on a bit more about those ideas actually, because it's sort of set up the theme for the cycle today, hasn't it? I suppose I don't want to talk too much about other ideas. Like I said earlier, I don't want to give you a memory overflow. And you can't hold on to all of those different things. But I want to just go over a little bit more again about the concept, the chief concept of Guernsey being an incubator for great ideas. Now, of course, it's going to require skill to find out what these great ideas are, and some of them are going to be losers, right? And we will have incubated an idea that doesn't generate the warrants which we can capitalise on, and I mean that figuratively, of course, because you don't necessarily need to sell or exchange the result of those warrants. You can hold on to your shares or whatever it is, whatever equity stake you have. It could be like a structure that holds that stake. You can let it grow and grow and grow, and it could become part of the assets of the community, the island of Guernsey. I mean, lots of countries have done that, where they've invested in markets to improve their stability. And I think Guernsey can do that with a scheme like this. So you've got to be able to cover those losses too, right? But at least you mitigate the losses by having rented accommodation, having brought, income, having raised more income tax from more people in the island working, and also providing jobs for islanders to service those companies. So you've benefited from the presence of the startup. Hello. You're welcome. So yeah, you've benefited from nurturing the startup. And I'm sure, I mean, there are a lot of I used to work in VC a long time ago, but there's a lot of very experienced people who know venture capital or VC over here. And we have a lot of connections with business angels and alike. So I'm sure they would be very, very well equipped to explore this idea very, very rapidly. It's not like we're lacking anything, right? This is why I like the idea of Guernsey as an incubator, because we're incredibly well positioned to do it. You know, we're not some rock in the middle of an ocean that doesn't know anything other than raising sheep. You know, and no, that's not to discredit anybody that actually does that, because they might have a successful enterprise. But, you know, that's not all we do. We're very skilled. So it's something that we can pick up very quickly. And I would like to see traction on it. Hello. Thank you. There's our walkers, all looking expertly equipped. So there we are. I've spoken a little bit more about the incubator concept and tried to sell it a bit more. I do think we are very well positioned to do stuff like that. I mean, some stuff like that already occurs, of course, because people do launch a lot of businesses through Guernsey, but I think we should make it easier and stop aiming more towards finance. So there you are. Like I said before, again, I am interested to hear your comments, so if you will leave them for me, I will do my best to respond, of course. And but I'm not interested in people just shooting things down. I get that all the time. I don't mind criticism, but a lot of people just say, "Oh, this is nonsense," and don't provide an explanation. Hello.
Right.
Yeah, not bad. And I don't like it when people do that, because it's very easy to smash something up with a sledgehammer and walk away without providing any reason why you did it. And unfortunately people heard. So when someone says, "Oh, this is a really bad idea," other people tend to stand behind them, because it's like that crowdthink problem where people want a shortcut. They want to follow the lead of someone else, and they don't engage their critical thinking. I want people to engage their critical thinking and think about these ideas and explore them, pick them up, grow them, make them flourish. It might lead on to something radically different. Who knows? Right, going to stop things there. I'll just pause this though, because I've got further to go. Let you have a quick look at Grand Rock, lovely spot. I love coming here. This is like my halfway point. I'm very much into my routines, of course, being an autist. So there you go, hope you enjoyed that, and catch you again soon.